The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets in the boardroom. But it was his eyes, those piercing blue eyes, that cut through the haze of my exhaustion. He sat there, translucent yet achingly real, in the empty chair beside me, mouthing words I could never hear over the drone of quarterly projections. Every promotion, every corner office, every hollow victory had led to this, my soulmate's ghost haunting the empire I built on the ruins of our love. I blinked hard, forcing my gaze back to the PowerPoint slide flickering on the massive screen. Alex, your thoughts on the merger? My CEO's voice sliced through the tension. All polished edges and expectant pauses. The room's sterile white walls. Mahogany table polished to a mirror sheen. The faint scent of overbrewed coffee held 20 executives in tailored suits, their faces masks of calculated ambition. I was one of them now. At 35, the youngest VP of strategy at Vanguard Capital in Manhattan's glass-towered financial district. But Jamie's apparition didn't fade. He leaned forward, his spectral fingers drumming silently on the ghost of the table, as if urging me to speak the truth I'd buried 8 years ago. Strategic alignment is key, I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my throat. The synergies could boost EBITDA by 15% in the first fiscal year. Nods rippled around the table, pens scratching notes on leather-bound pads. Jamie's lips curved in that familiar half-smile, the one that used to melt me after late-night shifts at the diner where we'd met. He whispered something Lyran, the word hung in the air like smoke, invisible to everyone but me. The meeting dragged on, charts blurring into one another, until the clock ticked past 7, and the room emptied like a receding tide. Only then did I slump back, alone with him. Go away, I muttered, rubbing my temples. But ghosts don't listen. Jamie's form solidified just a fraction, his faded hoodie materializing in soft gray tones. The same one he'd worn that rainy October night in Brooklyn when he'd proposed we run away to California. No more scraping by in this soul-crushing city, he'd said. Just us. A tiny apartment by the beach, building a life from love instead of ledgers. I'd laughed it off then, kissed him to silence the fear gnawing at my gut. But ambition had claws, and mine had dug deep. By morning, I'd chosen the internship at Vanguard over his dreams, and the fracture lines spread from there. That was 2015. Fresh out of NYU with a business degree hot off the press. I was 27 and starving for more than microwave ramen and shared twin beds. Jamie was 25, a barista by day and aspiring graphic designer by night. His sketches of his intertwined bodies under city lights stayed to our fridge like promises. We were electric. Two queer kids against the world, stealing kisses in Washington Square Park, whispering futures in the dark of our walk-up in Bushwick. You're my forever, he'd say, tracing the tattoo on my wrist, a tiny compass rose he'd inked himself during a tipsy weekend in the village. I'd believed it, until the offer came. Vanguard's recruiter cornered me at a career fair. We see potential in you, Alex. Real leadership material. The salary was triple what Jamie and I scraped together, with bonuses that whispered of stability, of proving to my conservative Texas family that I wasn't just the gay disappointment who'd fled to New York. Jamie begged me to negotiate time off, to weave our lives into the corporate weave. But I saw the path, entry-level analyst to manager in 3 years, VP by 35. Success wasn't a dream. It was armor. So I signed, and the first crack appeared. Our arguments escalated like summer storms. This job is eating you alive, he'd shout, his voice echoing off our peeling wallpaper as I pored over spreadsheets till dawn. I'd snap back, exhausted and defensive. Someone has to pay the bills. Your art isn't cutting it. It was cruel, and we both knew it. The nights grew colder. His side of the bed stayed empty more often. Then came the merger deadline eating hour days. Takeout dinners alone in the office kitchen. Jamie left voicemails I ignored. Come home. Alex, we can fix this. I didn't. On the night we closed the deal, champagne corks popped in the conference room while I stared at my phone. His final text unread, if you choose them over us. I'm gone. For real. He was gone by morning. Not just from our apartment, his clothes. His sketches. The coffee mug with our initials etched in Sharpie all vanished. A note on the counter. I love you enough to let you chase your stars. But don't forget. Love was the brightest one. I crumpled it. Told myself it was for the best. Ambition surged. I climbed. Promotions stacked like bricks in a wall. Each one higher. Colder. Dates blurred into one-night stands with men who never stayed. Their touches hollow echoes of Jamie's warmth. I told myself I was thriving penthouse in Midtown. Rolex on my wrist. Invitations to galas where power players slapped my back and called me the future. But the dream started 6 months ago. Vivid. Suffocating visions of him, laughing in our old kitchen. His head on my lap during movie marathons. The way he'd cry out my name in the quiet hours. Then the sightings. First in my apartment mirror. A flicker behind my reflection. Then in the elevator at work. His hand brushing mine like a chill wind. Now, every meeting room. He attends them all. Silent sentinel to my unraveling. Tonight, as the city lights bled through the boardroom blinds, I gathered my notes and fled to the executive lounge. The space was a sanctuary of leather armchairs and crystal decanters, overlooking the Hudson's black ribbon. I poured a scotch. Neat. And sank into a chair. Jamie followed, perching on the armrest like he used to on our fire escape, legs dangling over the void. Why now? I whispered, the liquor burning a path to my chest. His eyes softened, that impossible blue holding mine without judgment. No answer. Of course. Ghosts don't explain. They accuse. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over blocked numbers. His profile pic stared back a selfie from our last good weekend. Arms around each other at Coney Island. Wind-whipped and grinning. The date on the photo, July 2017. Wait. That was 2 years after he left. My heart stuttered. He'd vanished in 2015. What the hell was this? I scrolled frantically, unblocking the string of missed calls from an unknown number in late 2017. Voicemails loaded. His voice crackling through the speaker. Alex. It's me. I can't do this anymore. The city's killing me without you. If you ever static. Then silence. The timestamp, October 12th, 2017. The day before the subway accident that made Headlanisa drunk driver plowed into a crowd at Union Square. 19 dead. I'd skimmed the article. Numb. Telling myself it couldn't be him. But the description matched. 26-year-old male. Blonde. From Brooklyn. No ID found in the chaos. Oh God. Jamie. The glass slipped from my fingers, shattering on the Persian rug. He reached out, his ethereal hand passing through my shoulder, leaving frost in its wake. I'd known. Deep down, in the black hole where regret festered. I'd known he was gone forever, and I'd buried it under board reports and balance sheets, letting success seal the tomb. The lounge door swung open. Alex. You okay? It was Marcus, my assistant mid-30s. Sharp-suited, with a crush he thought I didn't notice. He knelt to pick up the shards, his brow furrowed in concern. Rough meeting. Yeah, I lied, waving him off. Just need a minute. He lingered, eyes flicking to the empty space beside me, as if sensing the chill. Get some rest. Boss. Big pitch tomorrow. As he left, Jamie slid to the floor, curling against my leg like a shadow. For the first time, I didn't pull away. The city hummed below, indifferent to the man who'd traded love for ledgers, only to find his heart's ledger balanced in red ink. Tomorrow's pitch loomed a billion-dollar acquisition that could catapult me to the C-suite. But as I traced the air where his cheek should be, I wondered, what good was the summit if the climb had cost me the only view worth seeing? The next morning dawned gray and relentless. The kind of New York autumn that seeped into your bones like unspoken apologies. I arrived at Vanguard's tower at 6 a.m. The lobby a cathedral of marble and muted ambition. Security guards nodding as I badged through. My reflection in the elevator's crisp navy suit. Tie knotted like a noose mocked the boy who'd once danced shirtless in dive bars. Jamie's hands mapping my skin under strobe lights. That Alex was dead. Sacrificed on the altar of upward mobility. The pitch room was a war chamber, projectors humming. Flip charts bristling with bullet points. A catering spread of croissants and kale smoothies for the wellness-focused execs. My team buzzed around meaningless half my age. Eyes wide with the hunger, I remembered. "We've got this," said Lena, my lead strategist. A fierce queer woman in her late 20s with a pixie cut and a tattoo peeking from her cuff. Resist. She'd outed herself during onboarding. A casual flex that made me envy her fearlessness. Me. I'd stayed closeted at work. A ghost of my own making. Until a drunken holiday party 3 years in. When a colleague's sloppy kiss forced the truth into the open. No backlash. Vanguard prided itself on inclusivity, but the whispers lingered. A subtle tax on my rise. Jamie materialized as we took seats. Wedged between Lena and the client liaison from Helix Tech. A Silicon Valley startup ripe for the plucking. He looked almost solid today. His hoodie zipped against an invisible draft. Fingers interlaced as if praying for my failure. Or my salvation. The Helix CEO. A slick 40-something named Trent with venture capital teeth. Shook my hand too firmly. Heard you the closer. "Alex. Let's make magic." Magic. The word twisted like a knife. Jamie's eyes locked on mine. Pleading. Don't. But the projector whirred to life. And I launched in, "Gentlemen. Ladies, Helix isn't just an acquisition. It's the future of fintech." Slides flew by, market shares ballooning like hot air balloons. ROI curves arching toward infinity. The room leaned in. Trent's nods growing fervent. Lena chimed in seamlessly. Her voice a counterpoint to my baritone. Painting visions of integrated platforms that would democratize wealth for underserved communities. Noble lies. All of it. Vanguard's game was extraction. Squeezing margins from the vulnerable. But who cared when the numbers sang? Halfway through, disaster struck. A glitch. The deck froze on a slide titled Synergistic Growth Projections. The graph a pixelated mess. Murmurs rippled. Trent's smile faltered. Technical difficulties. He quipped. But his eyes were steel. My team scrambled. Laptops clacking. I stood frozen. Pulse thundering. The weight of a dozen careers teetering on this moment. Jamie rose then. Slow and deliberate. His translucent form gliding to the projector. He mouthed the fix. Restart the server link. Clear as day. His barista's practicality shining through the ether. Desperate. I nodded to Lena. Whispering the steps. She executed flawlessly. The slide snapping back to life amid relieved laughter. Close call. Trent said. Clapping. You run a tight ship. We closed the deal by lunch handshakes. Champagne toasts in the atrium. My phone buzzing with congrats from the brass. Promotion whispers started immediately. Executive director. Maybe even a board seat. Success. Served hot. But as the team hooped in the hallway, high fives echoing off glass walls. Jamie lingered by the window, staring out at the East River churning below. His shoulders slumped. the victory bitter ash in my mouth. That night, I broke routine. No gym. No takeout sushi at my desk. Instead, I cabbed to Bushwick, the neighborhood a palimpsest of our youth graffiti-splashed warehouses now dotted with artisanal breweries. The air thick with nostalgia and gentrified soy lattes. Our old building loomed. Its stoop cracked like old veins. The super, Mrs. Kowalski, recognized me instantly. Alex. Been years. Kid. You look successful. Her eyes, lined with loss, flicked to the buzzer for apartment 3B. Heard about Jamie. Tragic. Sweet boy. Inside, the stairwell smelled of garlic and regret. Each step a rewind. The door to 3B was ajar new tenants. A young couple with a baby gate and minimalist IKEA vibes. They let me in awkwardly, sensing the haunt in my stance. We found this in the closet, the guy said, handing over a shoebox tied with twine. Inside, Jamie's relics. Sketchpads filled with our face-some laughing. Him dreaming love letters folded like origami cranes. A USB drive labeled our mixtape. Back in the cab, box on my lap. Jamie filled the seat beside me, closer than ever. His hand hovered over mine, almost tangible. At my penthouse, I plugged in the drive. Tracks spilled out, indie folk anthems we'd slow dance to. His voiceover on one, track 7 for When You Doubt Us. Remember, Alex, success is nothing without someone to share the sunrise. Tears came then, hot and unbidden, soaking the silk of my shirt. I hadn't cried since the funeral I never attended to buried in a client crisis. Or so I lied to myself. Why didn't you fight harder? I choked out, facing his shimmering form by the floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan sprawled below, a glittering lie of progress. He tilted his head, that boyish curiosity undimmed by death. For the first time, words formed not spoken, but etched in the air like frost on glass. I did. You stopped hearing. The admission cracked me open. Flashes assaulted, the voicemails I'd deleted. The accidental scroll past his socials after the accident. The way I'd volunteered for every out-of-town trip to avoid the empty apartment. Guilt had been my silent partner, long before his ghost arrived. But now, with the shoebox spilled across my rug, photos curling at the edges, a pressed wildflower from our Central Park picnicit demanded reckoning. Marcus texted, "Deal's official. Drinks to celebrate." I typed back, "Rain check. Personal matter." Then, on impulse, I dialed my sister in Austin, the only family tie I hadn't severed. "Lila, it's Alex." Her voice, warm and weathered, pulled me under. "God, it's been months. What's wrong?" I spilled it all, the climb, the loss, the specter in my boardrooms. She listened. No judgment, just the soft clink of her wine glass. "You know, Dad always said success is a poor substitute for soul. Come home, Alex, or find yours here." Home. The word tasted foreign, laced with possibility. Dawn crept in, painting the skyline rose gold. Jamie stood at the window, fading with the night. Panic surged. "Don't go," I begged, lunging forward. My hand passed through him, but for a heartbeat. Warmth lingered, a echo of his pulse against mine. He smiled, sad and sweet, then dissolved into motes of light, scattering like dandelion seeds. Work that week was a blur of handoffs and hollow victories. The promotion came via email. "Congratulations. Alex Rivera, SVP. Effective immediately." Confetti emojis from colleagues. A bottle of view from the CEO. I should have felt invincible. Instead, I wandered the halls like a man half alive. Jamie's absence a fresh wound. Meetings dragged without him. His chair stayed empty. a void that echoed louder than any presentation. Lena cornered me in the break room, stirring her oat milk latte with unnerving focus. "You're off your game, boss." Spill. Her directness, a queer solidarity I hadn't earned, pried me open. Over vending machine pretzels, I confessed fragments the ghost. The guilt, not the full queer heartbreak. But enough. She didn't flinch. My ex was a climber too. Left me for a startup in the valley. Took me 2 years and a therapist to see I was worth more than his LinkedIn glow-up. She squeezed my arm. "You're not alone, Alex. But you gotta choose, keep climbing, or start descending to where the real views are." Her words fermented, bubbling up during the quarterly board retreat in the Hamptons. A weekend of strategy sessions in a waterfront mansion white clapboard. Infinity pools merging sea and sky mint for team building, but laced with cutthroat subtext. I drove up alone. The Long Island Expressway, a ribbon of regret under thunderheads. Jamie's box road shotgun, a talisman against the isolation gnawing my ribs. The first night, after a dinner of seared scallops and veiled barbs about market shares, I slipped out to the beach. Waves crashed like accusations. The air salty with unspoken grief. Footprints in the sand led to a bonfire pit, where a few stragglers, Lena among them, nursed beers and shared war stories. Truth or dare. Corporate edition. Someone joked. When my turn came, Lena locked eyes. "What's the one choice you'd undo?" The group chuckled, expecting a light quip about a bad investment. But the words tumbled out. I let go of the man who saw me. Really saw me. For a title that echoes in empty rooms. Silence fell, heavy as the tide. Trent, of all people, leaned in, his venture polish cracking to reveal a gay dad who'd lost his partner to AIDS in the 90s. "Kid, success is a marathon with no finish line. Love, that's the sprint that matters." Stories unfurled, then closeted climbs. Out in proud falls. The queer undercurrent binding us in Vanguard's marble maze. Jamie appeared at the fire's edge, flickering like embers, his face illuminated in ethereal orange. He didn't sit. He watched, approving. For the first time, the ghost felt less like punishment, more like guide. Back in my room, waves lulling through the screens. I sifted the box again. The USB's final track, our voices. Layered over acoustic guitar vows we'd recorded drunk on cheap Merlot. In sickness. In success. Till death do us part. I laughed through tears. The irony a balm. Monday's flight back was turbulent, mirroring the storm in my chest. At JFK, my phone lit up, Lila. Forwarding a flight confirmation. Texas. Next weekend. Dad's asking about you. Time to come home. Home. Not the penthouse. Not the tower. The ranch house in Austin. With its creaky porch and family secrets, Dad's quiet acceptance after my coming out. Mom's recipes stained with love. I'd run from it all, chasing New York's validation. But Jamie's ghost had chased me back. The office welcomed me with a plaque on my door, SVP Rivera. I traced the letters, then boxed my things, not all, just enough for a sabbatical. HR blinked at my email, personal leave. Indefinite, but Lena covered. Her wink a promise of return on my terms. As I rode the elevator down for the last time that week, Jamie materialized one final time. Solid as memory in the corner. "California?" I asked, the old dream resurfacing. He nodded, grinning that lopsided boy smile. No words needed. The compass on my wrist itched, pointing west. I booked the ticket that night, San Francisco. A studio by the bay. Freelance consulting to fund the leap. No empire. Just space to breathe. To date without deadlines. To ink new stories on fresh skin. The flight to Austin touched down at sunset. the plains stretching golden and forgiving. Dad waited at arrivals. Grayer but steady, his hug rough and real. Proud of you, son, for coming back. Over brisket and beers that night, I told them everything, Jamie. The ghost. The awakening. Mom cried softly. Dad's hand on mine. We always knew you were chasing more than money. He said. Just hoped you'd circle back to us. 2 weeks blurred into healing, long walks under live oaks. Therapy sessions unpacking the ambition armor. Lila's kids climbing me like a jungle gym. Jamie's visits tapered flashes and mirrors. Whispers on the wind, but his presence lingered. A gentle push. One evening. Porch swing creaking. I scrolled dating apps, not for hookups, but connection. A match pinged. Ethan. 32. A graphic designer in Austin with blonde curls and a bio quoting E. Cummings, I carry your heart with me. Our first coffee turned to dinner. Then stargazing on the ranch's hill. He listened to Jamie's story without pity. Shared his own losing a brother to conversion therapy's scars. Regrets a teacher, not a jailer, he said, his hand warm in mine. No rush. No ghosts. Just two men, queer and whole, building under Texas skies. Months later, a package arrived from Lena, Vanguard swag. A note tucked inside. Took your advice, started my own firm. Focused on ethical fintech for queer creators. Your seat's open if you want it. But chase the sun, boss. I smiled. Framing the mixtape sleeve on my new Walla cozy bungalow in Austin's east side. Rainbow flag fluttering by the door. Jamie came one last time that solstice. Full moon silvering the yard. He stood in the doorway. Hoodie traded for a spectral button-down. Looking every bit the artist he'd become in death. Thank you, I whispered. Ethan's arm around my waist a steady anchor. Jamie nodded. Eyes bright. Live for us both. Then he stepped into the light. Dissolving not in sorrow, but releasing a sigh on the breeze. Now, at 36, success wears a different face. Mornings with Ethan sketching over coffee. Evenings volunteering at the local LGBT center. Consulting gigs that fund scholarships for kids like us fleeing small towns for big dreams without losing their hearts. The boardrooms are memories. They're ghosts banished by choice. I gave up my soulmate to chase success. But in reclaiming my soul, I found not one love, but a constellation family. Friends. A partner who sees the man beneath the climb.